sitting in my car. It's a beautiful day outside, overcast, cool, very nice. I ran and got the parts for my husband. If you can see here, oh, some big boxes. Anyway, what I wanted to tell you was a little story. Because life is about stories. And I like to tell my stories, and I love to hear other people's stories about life and life experiences. But I had made a video about yak butter tea because I had watched a video about these Tibetan monks that put yak butter in their tea in the morning. So I thought, because I was trying to figure out how I was going to eat a cube of butter a day on this carnivore diet. And I love butter, especially salted butter. That's my favorite. As a matter of fact, here's my butter I went and bought this morning because, like I said, I do 75% carnivore. And in the mornings, I like to run to Starbucks and get a cinnamon dolce latte hot. And then if I put butter, I can melt it and drink it, and it makes it easy. So last week, for about 7 days, I put a cube of butter in my venti latte every morning for 7 days. But I was starting to go up on the scale, and I went to 168, then 169, and I was moving up fast, and it was freaking me out because my goal is to get to 163 and then keep moving down the scale, because in January of 22, I had started counting calories, and I started at 198 pounds because during COVID I got fat and I just started going up the scale. So in January 22, I started to do this little thing where I would take my weight, and as a female, you times your weight by 10, and then that tells you how many calories you're eating a day, which pretty much comes up to 1,198, exactly your weight. And if you're a man, you take your weight and you times it by 12, and that tells you how many calories you're eating. And then if you're counting calories, you subtract 200 or 300 calories from the calorie intake from that math that you've done. And then instead of eating 1,198 calories like I was, you cut back 200 or 300 calories. And from January 22 until September, I lost 35 pounds counting calories. And I also was doing Mizzy, my exercise routine in the morning. And by September, I weighed 163. And I was so happy about that because I haven't seen 163 in a long time. Well, that was September 22. And then in September 22, we were moving into the holidays like Thanksgiving and Christmas. And I thought, well, I've lost 35 pounds and I'll have a little treat here, a little treat there. So I kind of started slipping and sliding around. And in a few months, by 23 sometime, I had gained 20 pounds of the 35 that I lost. So I decided that I needed to try to lose that 20 pounds and try to get back down to the 163, because now I was back up to about 180, 81, maybe 183 might have been the highest. I don't know. Can't remember. But anyway, so I started working on losing that 20 pounds. And in April or May of 25, I decided that I was going to do 75% carnivore. And so I'm almost at the year mark where I am. I'd have to go back and look at the exact date that I started. But here we are in May of 26. And today I weighed 164.8. So I'm almost back to the 163. So when I was putting a cube of butter in my latte and I was moving up the scale fast, I had to pull back on that. But one of the benefits in those 7-8 days that I put a cube of butter in my latte was that I had this protein rash. I don't know if you can see, but right here in my arm on this side, in September of 25, I started to get this protein rash. And it's very itchy. And in 7-8 days of putting a cube of butter in my latte, my protein rash completely went away. But then I was getting fat, I felt. So I quit doing a cube of butter now for the past week. And my protein rash is back and itchy. So I was noticing on another video I watched that the Tibetan monks put 1 tablespoon of butter in their tea. So I decided I'm going to try this little experiment of putting either 1 or 2 tablespoons of butter in my latte. So this morning I went and bought butter because I had to run and get my husband's parts. And I bought the butter and I put 2 tablespoons in my latte. And I'm really interested to see if it will heal this protein rash just with 2 tablespoons of butter, or maybe even 1. I might even just do 1 because I love butter, but butter is high in calories. And I still believe that you've got to pay attention to your calorie intake. And I'm almost at 163. I'm 164.8. So I'm almost there. Almost back to the 163 I was at in September of 22. And then once I get there, my plan is to continue moving down the scale and get down to 135 or 125, whichever one I reach and whichever one I look comfortable or healthy at. But anyway, so here we are, almost there. And see, if you put a cube of butter in your latte, then you're looking at the latte, if you get a large, is 450 calories. And then you're adding another like 800 calories because a cube of butter is 8 tablespoons. So you're adding another 800 calories to that. So I backed up on that idea, and I'm going to, try this little experiment to see if 1 or 2 tablespoons of butter will cure this rash, this protein rash that I have. And then keep me still in a good calorie situation. So I'm in a, calorie, I wouldn't say deficit, but the goal is if you want to weigh 130 pounds, you got to eat 1,300 calories as a female. At least I have to eat I have to eat 1,300 calories to be 130. And so if you eat 1 meal a day, usually you're eating about that. You're eating about 1,300 calories. So I would like to heal this little protein rash that raised its ugly head again and not overdo on the calorie side and continue going down that scale and reaching my 163 and then continuing on my journey down the scale to 135. or 125, whichever one. We'll see. But anyway, I just had to tell you my little story for the day and share yours with me because I'd like to hear. Maybe you'll have ideas that I've never heard before or thought of, and then I can implement those in my life. All right, have a great day. Talk to you later.